Hashas, Vranan, Rabbanan, Rabbi. The daf. It's become so common an expression that it is no longer the daf yomi, but merely the daf. It's become a proper noun. It's become our daily manner of speaking. Expressions like "Did you do the daf?" "Where is the daf holding?" are part of our lexicon. But according to Rav Meir Shapiro, it's so much more than a mere figure of speech. The Gemara in Yevamis relates how Rabbi Gamliel once saw a ship sink with Rabbi Akiva aboard. He was sure that he had drowned. When Rabbi Akiva miraculously appeared before him, Rabbi Gamliel asked him, "How are you saved?" Amar li, daf shel svina nizdamein li. The simple translation of that is that Rabbi Akiva was saved by holding on to a plank of the ship, a daf. But the word daf, in the word daf, Rav Meir Shapiro saw a clear metaphor. It's the daf that saves so many of us from drowning as well. Maybe not in the turbulence of the sea, but the turbulence that sometimes is our lives. Put succinctly via the haunting pasuk niggin that we know, the haunting pasuk that we know from that haunting niggin, Lulei seirascha she'ashuai azavarati be'ani. If not for your Torah that was my delight, I would have been lost in my pain. And this is what Rav Meir Shapiro tried to convey, that it is limud haTorah bichlal and the daf yomi bifrat that is our life preserver. It's the lifeline that we all need. And that's very expression, lifeline. Someone wrote to me to describe his relationship with daf yomi. Suffice it to say that this person had had a difficult life. He was a yosem at an early age. He had very little money. He had several medical issues, and he did have an easy time socially. And here is what he wrote me after the last Siyum Hashas 7.5 years ago. I have been out of yeshiva for 2 years, and I have barely learned a word. I was not all that happy with myself. I would come home at night and stare at my 19-inch color companion, and I realized that this had to stop. So I tried daf yomi. As I sat in Madison Square Garden last Tuesday night, I was on the tail end of a roller coaster ride. I had not had the greatest mazel socially, job-wise, city-wise, and the list goes on. But what I did have was a lifeline, a constant companion on the train, at the doctor's office, late at night, early in the morning, a trusted companion who would never let me down, even if everything else and everybody else would. All this companion asked from me is that I visit every day for an hour or so. And hear what he has to say. It's the same message that the Ger Rebbe once told at Sebrachan Yid, a broken Jew who had recently lost his wife and was very, very lonely, and he cried to the Rebbe from the depths of his solitude. And the Rebbe told him, Oy Yid hat a Blatt Gemara, is kein Mal nicht allein. If a Jew has a Blatt Gemara, he's never alone. Which one of us wouldn't want such a companion? Limud HaTorah is so much more than just another mitzvah. It is life itself. Those words, Ki heim chayenu v'yarech yameinu, are to be taken literally, which helps us explain the famous Gemara in Masechta Yuma, that Hillel HaZaken used to spend half of his daily wages to gain entry into the Beis Medrash. And one day when he couldn't find work and had no money, he went up to the roof in the dead of winter and listened from the skylight. Olav nislas ale al pi aruba kidei sheyishma divrei Elokim chayim mipi shmaya v'avtalyain. The Chafetz Chaim asks that this Gemara seems to contradict the well-known halacha that one should not spend more than 20% of his assets in the performance of a mitzvah. Why then did Hillel seemingly violate this halacha by spending 50% of his meager wages in the performance of a mitzvah? I once heard, and the Chafetz Chaim himself in the Likutei Halachos alludes to this, and that is because the Gemara uses an expression that the Gemara rarely used. Matter of fact, it's the only time in all of Shas Bavli that the Gemara uses this expression to describe a shir, and that is Kidei Sheyishma Divrei Elokim Chayim Mipi Shmaya V'Avtalyain. This wasn't just a shir. This wasn't just another mitzvah. To Hillel, this was Divrei Elokim Chayim. This was life itself. And for life itself, there are no spending limits. To Hillel, this was his lifeline. And when he couldn't afford it, he listened from the skylight. Hillel truly believed in those words, Ki heim chayenu v'erech hameinu. And on some level, we all feel like this, perhaps not consciously, but somewhere in the recesses of our souls, we know this to be true. Rabbi Aaron Paprin was a chaplain during World War II, and after the war was over, he would visit DP camps to provide for the needs of the Holocaust survivors. And we'd ask each of the survivors, Was darf dir? What do you need? And the answer would invariably come back, Ich darf a paar Shich. I need a pair of shoes. Ich darf a paar Hosen. I need a pair of pants. However, there was one Yid. His name was Mr. Seeger. He was a Bovaver Chassid. He had a strange request. When Rabbi Paperman asked him, Was darf dir, what do you need? His response was, Ich darf a Bove Kame. Rabbi Paperman said to him, Ja, aber was darf dir? What do you really need? And again, the same response, Ich darf a Bove Kame. Until Rabbi Paperman finally realized that that is what he really wanted, and he was successful in getting him a Gemar Bava Kama. That Yid knew with his entire being that besides for clothes and shelter and food and water, every Yid needs something else. He needs a Bava Kama. Ki heim chayenu v'yarech yameinu. And there's another factor that motivates people to learn the Daf Yomi, even in our day and age. When Rameir Shapiro started this magnificent program, it had a natural attraction. A Jew in Europe who toiled at a menial job during the day saw learning at night as an escape from a difficult reality. This was his hour of enjoyment. This was his relaxation, a respite from a life that was full of privation. But today, there are so many distractions, so much to occupy one's time, so much out there that dazzles the eye and the imagination, and yet people will rise at 5 a.m. or begin at 11 p.m. To do what? To study a text written more than 1,500 years ago in a difficult language, which is intellectually challenging with many arcane subjects. And this has to compete with other pursuits that seem so much more alluring. They will do this in planes and on trains and in buses. They will do this during Chasanis waiting for the chuppah. They will do this in doctor offices and in supermarket checkout lines. They and their wives and their family and their children will bend their schedules to make this happen. Why? How do we explain the inexplicable? Perhaps it's because people realize that Torah is real and everything else, no matter how dazzling, is just fake. The pasuk describes Matan Torah as the Rebbeinu Shalom speaking to Klal Yisrael, Koyol Gadol V'lo Yosef, a mighty voice V'lo Yosef. Rashi says that the words V'lo Yosef means that the voice never stopped. But where is that voice? Have you heard it? My good friend Rabbi Yaakov Luban told me that he heard from his Rebbe, Rabbi Yisvei, who heard from his Rebbe, Rabbi Aaron Kotler, that voice is the voice of the Rebbeinu Shalom talking to man through the Torah. And when one and a Yid learns Torah, he still hears the reverberation of the Rebbeinu Shalom speaking to man. That is the power of Limud HaTorah. That is how the daf competes and the daf trumps. Because it is the real thing, and everything else is just fake. It is the power of the authenticity of Torah. And we're hearing another voice today. The Medrash says, Rabbi Shum ben Levi, B'chol yoyim v'yoyim baskol yetzas mihar cherev, v'yimeres oilahem lebriais me'elbeinu shel Torah, that every day a heavenly voice bemoans the fact that Yidden aren't learning enough. Well, have you ever heard that baskoil? If you're like most people, you will answer, no, I haven't. But in truth, we've all heard that baskoil, albeit faintly. The Baal Shem Tov was said that baskoil is the Hirhurei Tshuva, the thoughts of Tshuva that we have from time to time, when we think, I really should be learning more, or I'm really wasting my time with this. That is that baskoil. But sometimes it's too fleeting. It's too faint. And we squelch it. And we quash it. And we ignore it. But today, sitting here among 90,000 people, we do hear that baskoil. It's the clarion call that emanates from this stadium that shouts, learn more. We can't say we don't hear it. We hear it loud and clear. And today we cannot squelch it. Today we must respond. And today, we must leave here with a plan. If you've never learned the Daf Yomi, then tomorrow is the day to start. If this is your second or third time finishing Shas, then you must ask yourself, how am I going to do better next time around? Maybe go to a Shir Iyun once a week on the Sugi of the Daf. Maybe learn the Daf in the morning and go to Shir Chazor at night. Maybe be so bold as to take tests on the Daf. And if you can't learn then a daf a day, then make it an omid a day, or a daf of Mishnah Berurah a day, or a Mishnah a day, but something a day. But we must respond to that bas kol that we can no longer ignore and leave here with a plan. And that was the message that Rav Nosson Tzvi shared with a Yid named Rav Nachum Stillerman. Mr. Stillerman, after retiring, moved to Eretz Yisrael in honor of his 70th birthday. He finished Masechta Shabbos, an accomplishment he proudly shared with Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel. Rav Nosson Tzvi congratulated him, but told him that that's not enough. Go back and figure out a plan how you could finish Shas. He came back with a printout and figured out that by learning 10 hours a day, it would take him 23 years to finish Shas. Rav Nosson Tzvi's reaction was, now that's a plan. Mr. Stillerman, however, had a different reaction. I'll be 93 by the time I finish. How can I undertake a plan that I cannot possibly finish? Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, by then afflicted with debilitating Parkinson's disease for more than 28 years, struggled mightily from his seat. And while shaking, he reached under the tablecloth and pulled out more of his plans for the expansion of the Mir Yeshiva. And he turned to Mr. Stillerman and he asked him, and do you think I can do what I'm doing? Look at me! But he had a plan. And that's what he demanded from Mr. Stillerman, a plan. And that's what's demanded from us today, a plan. And if it sometimes seems beyond our koiches, all we have to do is picture in our mind's eye Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel. Mr. Stillerman once had another conversation with Rav Nosson Tzvi. Years earlier, Rav Nosson Tzvi had commented to Mr. Stillerman incredulously that maybe his Parkinson's disease was an einish, a punishment for not learning Torah Lishma. Mr. Stillerman sometime later offered a different approach as to why the Rosh Yeshiva had to suffer, based on a Yerushalmi Masechta Huriyos. The Yerushalmi says in Masechta Huriyos that when Moshe Rabbeinu learned Torah on Har Sinai from the Rebbeinu Shalom, he would forget immediately what he learned, until to the end the Rebbeinu Shalom had to give him the entire Torah as a gift. But why did Moshe have to suffer and endure this frustrating experience of learning and forgetting and learning and forgetting and learning and forgetting? Says the Yerushalmi, Kol kach lama lahachziras hatipshim, so that people who forget their learning won't give up and say, what's the use? It's an exercise in futility, I forget anyway. Moshe Rabbeinu provides the counter-argument. Mr. Stillerman suggested that maybe the Rosh Yeshiva had to suffer from his illness to provide living proof that one can learn even if it's difficult. Like the man I heard about 2 nights ago, who was a member of a Daf Yomi in Brooklyn, but in the middle of the cycle became blind. but he would go to the daf every day in spite of his blindness. He was the first to come and the last to leave to learn real Torah Sheba'al Peh. Reb Nosson Tzvi leaned over and kissed Mr. Stilleman, and quoting the Gemara in Masechta Makos, he told him, Akiva nicham tanu, Akiva nicham tanu, you have comforted me. In our generation, we had a Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, an American-born boy, raised in Chicago, Illinois, a graduate of every Crown Day School, who became a Gadol B'Yisrael. Most of us will never become a Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, but he taught us all something, even if we never stepped ear in the Mir Yeshiva. He taught us never to give up. He taught us not to say, this is too hard. He taught us to always have a plan. He taught us to aim higher. He taught us to reach beyond. And he taught us that beyond your reach is really within your grasp.